Pin diagram of 8085. So students, in the 8085 pin diagram we have 40 pins. 20 are connected on the left side and 20 are connected on the right side. So 1 to 20 are on this side and 21 to 40 are on the right side. We will discuss each and every pin one by one. So we can start with the first two pins, that is X1 and X2. These are the crystal pins. See students, in between these two pins the crystal oscillator or a RC and the LC network is connected, which is used to provide the frequency to 8085 microprocessor. So in between X1 and X2 pin, this is X1 and this is X2 pin, there is a crystal oscillator which is connected, which is used to supply the frequency to the 8085 microprocessor. So here in this diagram, this is the crystal oscillator. Now students, the frequency of the crystal oscillator is 6 megahertz, but the frequency with which the microprocessor 8085 operates is 3 megahertz. So that means there is a need to divide 6 megahertz by 2 so that 8085 will run. But in this case, the crystal oscillator is having the frequency 6 megahertz. So that means we have to connect X1 and X2, both the pins, with the flip-flop. So here we can use the T flip-flop, which is used to divide the frequency by T. T flip-flop is also which is used to divide a frequency by 2. So see students, T flip-flop we can use because it is also known as a frequency divider by 2. That means this flip-flop is also used to divide any frequency by 2. So here we need to divide a frequency of 6 megahertz into the 3 megahertz. That means we can connect these two pins internally by the T flip-flop. T flip-flop is a toggle flip-flop which can receive one input at a time and it will produce two outputs. One is Q and second one is Q bar. That means Q bar is the complement of Q. So once the 6 megahertz frequency is received by the T flip-flop, then it can divide this frequency by 2. That means the result produced by the T flip-flop is 3 megahertz. So this 3 megahertz frequency will be called as a operating frequency to operate the 8085 microprocessor. That means it can convert the frequency into the 50% duty cycle. We can say either the frequency is divided by 2, or we can say it can convert at the rate of 50% duty cycle, means half of the frequency. So these two pins are connected with the crystal oscillator, and after connecting it with the crystal oscillator, half of the frequency is given to the microprocessor to operate. Next student, third pin is clock out. This is related to these two pins. That means once the frequency is set by the X1 and X2, or once the frequency is supplied by the X1 and X2 to the microprocessor, now the microprocessor will generate the clock out signals. Clock out signals are generated to all the devices that are connected with this microprocessor. So clock signals are given to the peripherals that are connected with this microprocessor, and also clock out signal will note the time required by in order to operate each and every operation. See students, suppose we have an operation in any instruction, that is read operation, means how much time is required by this operation in order to complete its execution. That time is also noted by the clock out signal. So this pin is useful for that purpose. The clock out signal or the clock out pin is also run at the frequency which is equal to the operating frequency of 8085. That means in case of 8085 the operating frequency is 3 megahertz. That means the clock out signal will use this frequency in order to calculate the time required by each instruction to execute. So here the clock out is having frequency frequency that is similar to the operating frequency of 8085. So students, here x1 and x2 are the signals that is given to the microprocessor, means the frequency which is given to this microprocessor 8085, that means these are the internal pins. So the arrow is towards the microprocessor. In next pin clock out signal, this signal is generated by the microprocessor to the other devices, that how much time they are taking to execute the instruction. So this signal is given by the microprocessor, so the arrow is towards the other peripheral devices. After that we have the pins that is reset out, and the pin similar to the reset out is reset in. See students, reset out is for the devices that are connected with the microprocessor, while reset in is the pin which is given to the microprocessor. If we want to reset or clear the contents of the microprocessor, then we can use the reset in pin. So this pin is responsible to clear or reset the microprocessor content. So that means once we are clicking on the reset button, then the value of program counter becomes 0000H. That means now there is nothing or no address in the program counter. Okay, and it will move the execution of any program from the start. So the user will directly move to the top of the program, and there is nothing in any of the register. All the registers within the microprocessors get cleared once this type of signal will be given to the microprocessor. For example, the accumulator, it is being 00H, B, C, D, E, all the registers are cleared once this type of the signal comes into the microprocessor, and the program counter becomes 0000H. That means there is nothing in the program counter now. Next one is, once the reset in signal is received by the microprocessor, then microprocessor will generate the reset out signal. That means once the microprocessor is resetted, then microprocessor will reset all the devices or all the peripheral devices that are connected with the microprocessor. So that means this type of signal is given by the microprocessor to the peripherals. So the pin is towards the peripheral devices. So reset in signal is used to reset or clear the contents of the microprocessor, while reset out is used by the microprocessor to clear the contents of the peripherals. So the reset out signal is towards the peripheral devices. Next one is the SOD and SID. So these two pins are responsible for the serial communication among the peripheral input output memory devices and the microprocessor. See students, in every computer we have to perform the read and write operations. So in order to perform read and write operations, we have to transfer the bits, or we have to transfer the data from one location to another. So in earlier microprocessors, the transmission or the transfer of data is serially. That means if we have 10 bits, then each and every bit will be serially transferred from one place to another, or from the microprocessor to the connected memory, or from the input output devices to the microprocessor, or the vice versa. Okay, but in case of 8085 we have the data bus of size 8-bit. That means 8-bit of data will be transferred among the microprocessor and the input output and the memory devices serially. Means if we have 8 bits, for example 1011 10110, so each and every bit will be transferred by the microprocessor into the memory, or the vice versa, serially. Firstly, 0 will move to from the microprocessor to the memory, and after receiving the 0 by the memory, now next bit 1 will be transferred from here to here, then 1, then 0, then 1 1 0 0. So that means in order to transfer the 8-bit data, 8 machine cycles are used. So this type of communication is the serial communication. This type of the communication was available in the earlier microprocessor, but nowadays in the current microprocessors we are using the parallel transmission of data. So in parallel transmission of data, all the 8 bits are being sent from one place to another parallelly. That means if the data is 8 bit, then 1 0 1 1 0 1 0 1 1 0. So all the bits are moved from one location to another in the parallel order. But here in this case there is only one wire between the microprocessor and the memory. So one wire can hold at a time only one bit of data. So this is a slower process, while in case of the parallel communication, simultaneously multiple bits we can send. So that means in this case the transfer data rate is higher as compared to the serial communication. Now see students, here we have 2 pins in order to transfer the data serially. First one is serial input data and second one is the serial output data. So serial input data means if microprocessor wants to get data from any device, then we can say it is a serial input data. And in case of SOD, if microprocessor wants to send some data to the external devices, then microprocessor will use SOD. So SID is used to accept the data from the external devices. So pin is towards the microprocessor, and SOD is used to transfer the data from microprocessor to the input, output and the memory devices. So the pin is towards the peripheral devices. Now students, SID is a serial input data. So that means SID is used to serially transfer the data bit by bit to the microprocessor, and the microprocessor is also accepting the data in the form of bits and bits. If initially one is being transferred by any input device, then only one will be received by the microprocessor at a time. So after receiving the data by the microprocessor, where microprocessor can save that data? For that, where the microprocessor can save that data, the microprocessor, after receiving the data, it will save it in the accumulator. So we have the accumulator, that is a general purpose register which is of 8 bit. So out of 8 bit, one place is reserved by the microprocessor where the data comes one by one. So here this is the accumulator 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So this is the 7th position. We can say A7, A6, A5, A4, A3, A2, A1 and A0. So students, in order to accomplish the serial input and serial output, the data will be saved in the accumulator, but we have 2 instructions in microprocessor 8085 which are responsible for the serial input and serial output. One is the RIM instruction and second one is the SIM instruction. These instructions we will study in detail in the next chapter. So RIM is the read interrupt mask and SIM is the set interrupt mask. So these are the multi-purpose instruction, means these can be used in the different purposes. See, SIM instruction is used to give the data to the peripheral devices that are connected with it. That means SIM is connected with the SOD, and RIM instruction is used to get the data from the peripheral devices into the microprocessor. So that means for this SID we can use the RIM instruction, and for SOD we can use the SIM instruction. And the second purpose of RIM and SIM are, SIM is used to set the interrupt mask, means it can decide which interrupt is to be enabled and which interrupt is to be disabled. And RIM is also responsible to read the status of the interrupt. So these are the different purposes in which we can use the RIM and SIM. So in order to get the data from the peripheral devices into the microprocessor, RIM instruction will be executed by the microprocessor, and in order to give the output or in order to give the data by the microprocessor to the externally connected peripheral devices, SIM instruction will be executed by the microprocessor. So here in this accumulator, this is the bit where we can set the status of SOD and SID. Okay students, if we have a data 10111100, and if peripheral devices wants to send this data to the microprocessor, that means one by one these bits are being saved in this bit of the accumulator. Firstly, 0 is being received by the microprocessor with the help of RIM instruction, and once the 0 will be received, then the microprocessor will save this 0 here. That means firstly microprocessor received 1, and after that the peripheral devices will send next bit, and this next bit 0 using the RIM instruction again save it at this location. So this operation will be performed 8 times in order to read this 8 bit. So students, in short, SIM and SID and SOD are responsible for the serial communication. In SID, the data will be received by the microprocessor from the external connected devices, either it is a memory device or other input-output devices. And to operate or to receive the data by a microprocessor from the external devices, there is an instruction in 8085 that is known as the RIM. RIM stands for the read interrupt mask, which is responsible to serially input the data by the microprocessor from the peripherals, and the data which is being received by the microprocessor serially, each bit by bit will be saved at the A7th location of the accumulator. Okay students, and SOD is the serial output data. That means this pin is used to send the data from the microprocessor to the external or the peripheral devices that are connected with this pin. So each time a microprocessor is sending the data, that data will be sent from this accumulator into the peripheral devices, and for this purpose we can use the instruction, or the microprocessor can use the instruction, that is SIM. SIM is the set interrupt mask, and both these instructions are the multi-purpose instructions in order to read the status of the interrupt, and in order to set the interrupt we can also use these instructions. Next, these are the pins: trap, RST 7.0, RST 6.5, RST 5.5 and INTR. So students, these are the hardware interrupts. So in 8085 we have 5 types of hardware interrupts and 8 types of the software interrupt. So why there are no pins for the software interrupts in the external pin diagram of 8085? Because software interrupts are always within the program. So programs are internal program. For that there will be no external pins. Only the external pins will be used if the connected output or the hardware devices will send any interrupt. For the hardware devices we can use the interrupts externally, but for the software interrupts, those type of interrupts are found within the program only. So that means that programs are within the microprocessor. So microprocessor will handle the software interrupts internally, but the hardware interrupts are generated by the devices that are connected with the microprocessor. So that means there are only 5 pins or the 5 hardware pins in case of microprocessor. So students, out of 5 pins, the first pin with the highest priority is trap. So we have the different types of hardware interrupts, but each is having different priorities, and according to the priorities, microprocessor will execute or serve these interrupts. So out of these 5 interrupts, trap is having the highest priority. That means if all these interrupt comes simultaneously to this processor, then this processor will check the priority of the interrupt. If it found that the priority of this trap interrupt is highest, then the microprocessor will serve this interrupt first, and after that the interrupt which is having the priority lesser than the trap will be served by the microprocessor. Next is students, out of these five the trap is having the highest priority. Second, the trap is non-maskable interrupt. That means we cannot, or the microprocessor cannot ignore this type of the interrupt. These type of the interrupts are the catastrophic interrupt, means if there is a sudden power failure. So these types of interrupts are known as the trap interrupts. And after trap we have RST 7.5. The priority of 7.5 is lower than the priority of trap, and again this is having the lowest priority, and after that the priority of RST 6.5 is lesser than 7.5, then RST 5.5, then the last one is INTR. So the priority becomes degraded from the trap to INTR. Next one is trap is the non-maskable interrupt. That means we cannot ignore this type of the trap. Always microprocessor has to serve this type of traps, and this is non-maskable. RST 7.5, this is also non-maskable, means we cannot ignore again these type of interrupts. RST 6.5, RST 5.5, and last one is the INTR. So students, this interrupt is having the lowest priority, and this interrupt is also known as the non-vectored interrupt. That means there is no ISR for this interrupt. ISR is the interrupt service routine that we will discuss later. See students, in short I will tell you, for each and every interrupt there is a coding behind it. Okay, so once this interrupt will comes into the microprocessor 8085, then microprocessor 8085 will go to the ISR of this trap and execute the ISR, and after executing it, it returns back to its original program. So that means these are the vectored interrupt. The interrupt which is having the ISR means the interrupt which is having the code, that is known as the vectored interrupt, and the interrupt which is having no code, that is known as the non-vectored interrupt. So that means out of all these five, all above four interrupts are the vectored interrupt, because these having the ISR, and INTR is known as the non-vectored interrupt because it is not having any ISR. This topic we will discuss later, okay, in detail. So students, after that this pin is the INTA pin. So INTA pin is the interrupt acknowledgement pin. That means once any peripheral device generated the interrupt to the microprocessor, once the interrupt is being received by the microprocessor, then it can send the acknowledgement to tell that the interrupt is being received by the microprocessor 8085. So that means the interrupt acknowledgement is given to the external devices about the it is generated by microprocessor to the peripheral devices. So pin is towards the peripheral devices, and these are the interrupts that are generated by the peripheral devices to the microprocessor. That means the direction of pin is towards the microprocessor. So once the hardware interrupt is received by the microprocessor, then microprocessor will intimate the peripheral devices about the successful receiving of the interrupt. So interrupt signal is given. See students, here this is the active low signal. That means when the value of this signal is 0, only then it will send the acknowledgement. If the value of INTA bar is 1, that means there is no acknowledgement from the microprocessor to the peripheral. When this pin is 0, that means there is an acknowledgement about the receipt of the interrupt from the microprocessor side to the peripheral devices. Next one is the AD0 to AD7. So student, these are the address and data bus pins. So here we have 16 in 8085 the address bus is of 16 bit that starts from A0 to A15. So out of A0 to A15, A0 to A7 are known as the lower order byte, while A8 to A15 is known as the higher order byte. So lower order byte is multiplexed with the data byte, while the higher order byte is not multiplexed with any data bus. So students, here why the address bus and the data bus are multiplexed, because we have 8-bit data bus in case of 8085 while 16-bit address bus in case of 8085. So if we are not multiplexing these address bus and the data bus, then we have to make another 8 pins in order to display D0 to D7, or in order to attach the 8-bit data bus. So that becomes little complicated. And second, why we are using or why we are multiplexing address bus and the data bus is because at a time microprocessor wants only one thing. Initially, in order to execute any instruction, microprocessor will produce the address, and after producing or generating the address, from that particular address or the memory location, microprocessor will fetch the data. So at a time, either microprocessor will operate on the address bus or on the data bus. Either it can fetch the address or either it can fetch the data. So that means at a time either the address bus is required by the microprocessor or the data bus. So why we can use different pins in order to show address bus and the data bus? Because if we are using different pins for the data bus and the address bus, then it becomes little complicated. We have to construct 8 more pins. So if we are making 8 more pins, then the pin diagram is little more complicated. Second, we require more wiring in order to connect the 8 more pins. So that means in order to reduce the wiring process and the space, and to make it less complicated, we can multiplex the address bus with the data bus. So here, that's why we are multiplexing the address bus with the data bus, because at a time microprocessor can use only address bus or the data bus. Initially, when the process or the program execution starts, then the microprocessor will firstly require the address bus from where it can send the address of the memory location from where either it want to read the data or where it want to write the data. So after fetching the address, only then through that memory location the data is being fetched by the microprocessor. So at a time either the address bus is required or the data bus. That's why we can multiplex it. So by multiplexing at a time, we can use only this pin for the one purpose, either for the address purpose or for the data purpose. And these pins are not multiplexed because we have only 8 bit data bus. So that means only 8 bits we can multiplex with the address bus, and 8 pins are not multiplexed. Now students, these pins are multiplexed, but how will the microprocessor will decide that in this system bus whether the address is traveled or whether the data is traveled? Suppose here 0000H is traveled. So that means how microprocessor will come to know that the data or the address which is flowed on this system bus is for the address location or is the data? So that means that is decided by a pin which is connected with our pin diagram with name ALE. So ALE stands for the address latch enable. That means microprocessor will select using this pin or decide using this pin whether the data on the address bus is for address or data. Okay, this is the address latch enable. It it is made up of the flip flop. That means it can store either 0 or 1, because flip flop is used to store only one bit at a time. So here, if the address slash enable is having value 1, that means the data on the system bus represents the address. So that means ki the data which is on the system bus currently, that represents the address. But if the value of ALE is 0, that means the data which is on the system bus will represent the data. Okay students, so if the value of ALE is equal to 1, that means system bus contains the address. If the ALE is equal to 0, that means the system bus contains the data. So using the value of ALE, microprocessor will come to know whether the system bus contains the address or a data. So students, AD0 to AD7, these are the addresses. So these addresses are bidirectional. Why? Because if we are using the data, so data is either towards the microprocessor or from the microprocessor to the peripheral devices. Okay students, so these pins are bidirectional. If we are using the address pin, then the direction of the address is from the microprocessor to the peripheral devices. If we are using the data bus, then the direction of these pins are on the both direction. If microprocessor is receiving the data, that means the arrow is towards the microprocessor. If microprocessor is sending some data, that means the pin direction is towards the peripheral devices. Here these are the addresses. So address is always generated by the microprocessor. So the direction of address bus is always away from the microprocessor. Now students, next one is SO and S1. So S1 and SO, these are the two pins that are known as the status signal pins. It will tell us the status S0 and S1. So students, these status signal pins is having either value 0 and 1. So depends upon the value, it will tell us the status. That means either microprocessor wants to read, either microprocessor wants to write. Then how will we come to know that what microprocessor wants to know? Using these values or by checking these values, we come to know about the status of the microprocessor. At a time, microprocessor is having only one status. Either it is in the halt condition, either it is in the ready condition, either it is receiving the data, either it is writing the data, either it is reading the data. So that means at a time, microprocessor will perform one operation. So students, S0 and S1, we have two pins. That means if there are two pins, then there are the 4 combinations. So S0 and S1, either the values of S0 and S1 are 0, 0, either 0, 1, 1, 0 and 1, 1. So we have 4 combinations, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0 and 1, 1. If both the S0 and S1 status symbols are 0, 0, that means the microprocessor is in the halt condition, means microprocessor is in the stop condition. If the pin S0 is 0 and the S1 is 1, that means microprocessor is performing the write operation, either with the input-output devices or with the memory. Next one is if S0 is 1 and S1 is 0, that means microprocessor is performing the read operations, again either with the input-output devices and with the memory. Next one is when both the bits are 1 and 1, that means currently microprocessor is fetching the instructions, or we can say a opcode fetch. See students, for each and every instructions within the microprocessor, there is a opcode. So that means if you are writing the opcode for the particular instruction, then opcode is itself a instruction. So if the status of microprocessor is 1, 1, that means there is a opcode fetch. Next one is after the status signals there are another two pins, that is read and write. So again these pins are active low signal. See students, when there is a bar over the pin, that means we can say that signal is active low. So here in this diagram we have RD, WR, M, reset in and INT. These are the active low signals because over these pins there is a bar. So RD and WR. So these are the read and write signals. So read and write signal will tell us whether the microprocessor is reading the data or writing the data. So that means these are only enabled when the value of these pins are 0. They are active only when these pins are low. When these pins are high, that means they are doing nothing. So students, in case of RD bar, when RD bar is equal to 0, that means microprocessor is performing the read operation either with the input devices or either with the memory devices. So that means either microprocessor is reading the data from any memory or any input output devices. So if this bit is set to 0 only, then these operations will be performed by the microprocessor. Now next is RD is equal to 0. That means if RD bar is equal to 1, that time microprocessor is not performing any read and write operations with input output and the memory devices. Next one is the write operation. In case of write operation, microprocessor will write the data either into the input output devices or in the memory. So if the value of write bar is equal to 0, that means microprocessor is either writing the data into the input output devices or the memory devices. Next is if the write bar is equal to 1, that means currently microprocessor is not using these devices for writing purpose. So if microprocessor wants to perform the read and write operations, then it can set the status of these pins to 0. But if the status of these pins is equal to 1, that means there are no write and read operations are being performed by the microprocessor. Students, after that we have next pin, that is IOM bar. So IOM bar stands for input output memory. Input, output and memory. See, while we are using the S1 and S0 pin, these pins will tell whether the microprocessor is performing the read operations or the write operations, but it will not give us the clear picture whether the read operations or write operation will be performed with the input output devices or with the memory devices. So this pin will tell us whether the read operation will be performed with the input output devices, or whether the read or write operations will be performed by the memory devices. So students, here half of the pin is active low while half of the pin is active high. So in this case, if the value of IOM bar is equal to 1, that means read and write operations of the microprocessor will be performed with the input output devices. And if the value of IOM bar is equal to 0, that means this is the active low signal, and this will active only when we can set the value of M bar is equal to 0. That means when the value of IOM bar is equal to 0, at that time read and write operations will be performed with the memory. So this is the IOM bar. Students, this is again a very big topic that we can discuss later. So after IOM bar, next pin is the ready pin. So ready pin will tell the devices or the peripheral devices or the memory that is connected with the microprocessor to get ready for the communication. Means before communication, microprocessor will send the ready signal to all the connected devices so that they become ready in order to start the execution or to start the communication among the devices as well as the microprocessor. So ready signal is being generated by the microprocessor to the external peripheral devices. So once the ready signal is being sent by the microprocessor to all the peripheral devices, then peripheral devices will check whether they are ready for the data transfer or not. So if the value of ready is equal to 1, that means the peripheral devices are ready for the communication, while if the value of ready signal is 0, that means they are not ready for the communication. So this is last two pins are VCC and VSS. So VSS pin is used for the ground reference, while the VCC means the power supply to the microprocessor 8085. So in case of 8085, the power supply is 5 volt. So students, this is all. Next two pins are hold and HLDA pin. So students, hold and HLDA pin, these two pins are used by the DMA, that is known as the direct memory access. See students, why we can use these two pins? Because we have three important or major components. One is microprocessor, second one is input output, and third one is memory. If input output device wants to send some data to the microprocessor, then it is not directly possible to send the data from the input output devices to the memory devices. For that, input output device initially send the data to the microprocessor, then microprocessor will initiate the transfer of data to the memory. So that means in order to send the data by a input output device to the memory, two cycles are involved. One cycle is from one input output to the microprocessor, and second is from the microprocessor to the memory. So there is a wastage of cycle. So in order to avoid this wastage, DMA controller will be used. So DMA stands for direct memory access controller. This controller will allow the direct transfer of data between input output devices and the memory without the involvement of microprocessor. Means using DMA, there is no need of the microprocessor to transfer the data between the input output devices and the memory. So directly input output device will be able to send the data to the memory. But in order to send or receive the data between the input output devices and the memory, system bus is required. But system bus is always with the microprocessor. The hold of system bus is always with the microprocessor. So initially DMA controller will send the signal to the hold signal to the microprocessor to get the system bus for the data transfer between the input output devices and the memory devices. So if the system bus is free, then the microprocessor will send the positive acknowledgement to the DMA controller, so that the DMA can start transferring the data by using the system bus. But if the system bus is busy with the microprocessor, then microprocessor will send a negative acknowledgement to tell the DMA that currently the system bus is not free. That means if the value of HLDA1 is 1, that means the system bus is free and the DMA will be able to use the system bus to initiate the data transfer between input output and the memory devices. But if the microprocessor will send HLDA is equal to 0, that means currently the system bus is busy in some other task within the microprocessor, so DMA has to wait for some random amount of time. So HLDA is equal to 0. So hold signal will sent by the DMA to the microprocessor to get the hold of the system bus, and the HLDA acknowledgement will be given by the microprocessor to the DMA to tell about the status of the system bus. So students, this is the overall pin diagram of 8085. In final exams, examiner will ask you any 3 pins. See, either it will ask you for the read, write and ALU. So you have to explain each and every pin and you have to tell whether this pin is active low or active high. So this is all about the pin diagram of 8085. Address and data bus demultiplexing. So before this topic we have discussed about the 40 pin diagram of 8085. In that pin diagram we have 8 pins with name AD0 to AD7. So these pins are known as the multiplexing address and data pin. These pins are demultiplexed using the address line and the data lines. In 8085 we have 8-bit data bus and 16-bit address bus. So that means in order to put the address on the system bus, microprocessor will generate the 16-bit address, and on the data bus microprocessor will generate the 8-bit data. So students, here in this topic we will discuss how we can demultiplex the address and the data bus, because in microprocessor we have to demultiplex or separate the address and data line, because at a time microprocessor will carry the data on the bus or either it can carry the address on the bus. So in order to separate these two buses we need to demultiplex the address and the data line. So for demultiplexing, in the structure we have a latch. So latch is also known as a flip-flop, which is required to demultiplex the address and the data line. So students, in this structure you can see we have the 16 address lines where A8 to A15 is the higher order byte, while A0 to A7 is the lower order byte. So lower order address lines are multiplexed with the data bus. So these eight lower bits of the address are multiplexed with the data bus. So there is no need to demultiplex these lines, because these lines are not multiplexed with any other lines in the pin diagram. These lines are separate, so higher order byte is generated without any implementation. But in order to separate the address from the data bus we need to demultiplex. We need to perform the demultiplexing here. For demultiplexing we have one more byte, that is known as the ALE. So whether the value of ALE is 1 and 0. So that depends. If the bus consists of the address, that means the value of ALE is equal to 1. But if the value of ALE is equal to 0, that means the bus consists of the data. So that depends upon the value of ALE, whether the ALE is high or low. According to its high and low value, the bus contains the address and the data. Now students, before seeing the scenario here, we can discuss the D flip-flop first, because this is the latch and this latch is the D flip-flop. So initially we can see the working of D flip-flop. So students, in case of the D flip-flop we have one input with name D, and here we can provide the clock signal, and this is the output of this flip-flop and this is the complement of the flip-flop. If the value of the output is 1, then Q bar is equal to 0. If the value of output is equal to 0, then Q bar is equal to 1. So in case of the D flip-flop, whether the value of clock is equal to high or low. That means high, if the value of clock is high, then we can set the value of clock is equal to 1, and low means 0. Now students, initially see, if the clock value is 0, that means there is no clock pulse externally given to this flip-flop, then the value of clock is equal to 0. And if we can give the input as 1, then the output do not depend upon the input of this flip-flop. The output depend upon the previous data that is stored in the flip-flop. Suppose in this flip-flop the previous data is 0. So that means if the clock signal is equal to 0, then Q depends upon the previous value, and here in this flip-flop the previous value is 0. So output is equal to 0. It will not depend upon the input while the clock signal is equal to 0. Now suppose if the previous value is 1 in this flip-flop and the clock is equal to 0, then again the value of Q, that is output, is 1. That means the previous value of this flip-flop. So whatever will be the previous value when the clock signal is 0, that will be the output of the flip-flop. Now students, when we can raise the clock signal, means when we can provide the clock signal to this flip-flop, then the output depends upon the input of this flip-flop. That means when the clock is equal to 1 and the input is equal to 1, then output is 1. Now second case is when the clock signal is equal to 1 and input is 0, then the output is 0. So that means when the clock signal is high, then the input is equivalent to output, and when the clock signal is low, then the output depends upon the previous value of the flip-flop. Now come to this diagram. Here the latch that is made up of the D flip-flop. So students, here we have to demultiplex 7 address and data lines. So that means here we need the 8 D flip-flops. So this is also known as the octal D flip-flop latch. That means octal is 8. So here 8 flip-flops are required to demultiplex the 8 address and the data line. So initially when the value of ALE is equal to high, that means here ALE means the clock signal that we are giving in the flip-flop. So when the ALE or clock signal is high, that means it can enable this latch, and whatever will be the input, that is the output of this flip-flop. So that means when the ALE is equal to 1 or when the clock signal is equal to 1, that means the whatever will be the input, that will be the output. So when we have ALE is equal to 1, then on the bus there is a address line. So that means when here the ALE is equal to 1, then the input is the address line, and that address will be moved from the latch in. Then that address will be moved into the latch, and this is the output, starts from A0 to A7. So that means whatever will be the input, that is equivalent to output when the clock signal or ALE is equal to high. Now second case is when the ALE is 0. So when the ALE is 0, at that time the output of the latch do not depend upon the input. The output will be the previous data that is stored in the latch. So previously we have the value of ALE is equal to 1, that means previously latch contains the address. So that means when we can set the clock is equal to 0, then again the output will be same. So again the output will be the address. So that means now the address is stored in the latch. So students, here now these AD0 to AD7 lines are free when the clock signal or ALE is equal to 0, because in the latch already address is stored. Now we do not require these address lines, because address, if microprocessor wants, then it can check that address from the latch. So now AD0 to AD7 lines are free. So in these lines now the microprocessor will send the data signal. So that means when the clock signal is 0, then all these 8 lines are used as a data bus in order to send the data signals. But when the ALE is equal to 1, that means now this address bus consists, then now this address and the data bus consist of the address that will goes from into the latch, and the address is stored here. So this is the functionality of the address and data bus multiplexing. Now students, why we can do the multiplexing in case of 8085 of AD0 to AD7? Because if we are doing the multiplexing, then less wiring is required, okay, लेस नंबर ऑफ पिंस. सो नंबर ऑफ पिंस जितनी कम होंगी उतनी ही ज्यादा कॉम्प्लिकेशंस कम होंगी. एंड व्हाट इज द डिसएडवांटेज ऑफ मल्टीप्लेक्सिंग? मल्टीप्लेक्सिंग, in case of multiplexing, the disadvantage is the latch overhead, because in order to multiplex or demultiplex we need a latch which is used to separate the address with the data line. So latch overhead is there in case of the multiplexing of data and the address bus. So this is the overall topic of the address and the data bus demultiplexing. memory mapped input output and input output mapped input and output. So students, in this topic we will discuss which approach is being used by the microprocessor to assign the addresses to the input output and the memory devices. So here 8085 will use input output mapped input output scheme. So in this scheme, each input output device and the memory locations will use different set of addresses. So, and in case of the memory mapped input output, this scheme is used in the previous microprocessor that comes before 8085, and in this memory mapped input output, same set of addresses are used to assign to the input output devices and the memory. See students, with the microprocessor, number of input output devices are connected. So microprocessor has to assign the different numbers to the input output devices, so that microprocessor will communicate with that. And even in the microprocessor there is a memory attached, and in the memory there are the different locations. So for each and every location, microprocessor has to assign the address, and using that address microprocessor will read and write the data. Similarly, if microprocessor wants to communicate with any of the input or output device, then microprocessor has to generate the address for that particular device. Only after generating the address to the corresponding device, the microprocessor can communicate with it. So that means unique number should be assigned to the memory locations as well as the input output device. So for this, 8085 uses the scheme input output map input output. In this scheme we have 256 addresses for the input output devices. So that means up to 256 memory locations we can use to represent the input output devices, that starts from 0 to 255. So these numbers we can use to assign to the input output devices. While for the memory, in case of 8085, we can generate the 16-bit address that starts from 000H to FFFH. So this range of number we can use to assign the memory location. So that means this set of the location is used to represent the memory location within the memory, and 256 addresses are for the input output devices. See students, here 256 addresses are generated because more than 256 input output devices no one can connect with your computer. Maximum to maximum 256. Also the 256 input output devices are more than sufficient. At a time a user can only attach 3 or 4 devices with its computer, but for the 256 devices in the microprocessor, addresses are generated. So these addresses will be assigned to the input output devices. Using these addresses, microprocessor will communicate with these devices. And for the address, the range is from 000H to FFFH, that is 65536. So total these addresses are generated for the memory locations in case of input output map input output. Now in this case, how will microprocessor comes to know that whether the address on the bus belongs to input output device or that belongs to the memory location? Suppose if the address is being sent, or if the address is on the address bus is 0011. Okay, so how microprocessor will come to know that this address belongs to the input output device or whether it belongs to the memory location? For that, in case of 8085, we have a special pin, that is input output M bar. Using this pin, microprocessor will come to know that whether the address on the bus belongs to the input output device or it belongs to the memory. So students, if the value of IOM is equal to 1, that means the address on the system bus belongs to the input output devices. Okay, so if the address on the address bus is for input output devices, then the microprocessor will start communicating with that particular input output device of which the address is on the address bus. Now if the value of IOM is equal to 0, that means the address on the address bus belongs to the memory location. So accordingly from that address microprocessor will communicate with that particular address. So this is the input output mapped input output. Now see, in case of memory mapped input output, see student, this type of scheme was used by the earlier or the previous microprocessor. Here we have only single set of range of the memory location, and out of this range some of the numbers are used to represent the input output devices, while some of the numbers are used to represent the memory. So suppose this is the range, so out of this range 000H to 000FH, these numbers are used to represent the input output devices, while the numbers other than this range are used to represent the memory location. So that means in this case the locations that are assigned for the memory are lesser. So lesser number of numbers we can use to represent the memory and input output devices, while in case of input output devices we have more range to represent the input output and the memory location. Next is in case of input output mapped input output, we have in and out instructions to communicate with the peripheral devices. Using these instructions, the microprocessor will send the address with and share the address with the peripherals. Now students, you can see this diagram where we have three values, IOM, S1 and S0. So S1 and S0 are the status signals. So status signals are used to represent what microprocessor is currently doing. So at a time microprocessor will perform any of the tasks. Either it can read, it can write, it can serve the interrupts, or it can be in the reset condition, or it can be in the halt condition. So that depends upon the value of the S1 and S0. So S1 and S0 will tell you only whether the microprocessor is doing the read operations or write operations, but with which device microprocessor is performing the read and write operations, that is being tell you by this pin, that is IOM. So IOM will tell whether the read operations is with the input device or it with the memory devices. So here you can see when the value of S0 is 1, that means always write operations are there. So when S0 is 1 and here the status of IOM is equal to 0, that means when this value is 0, that means the memory operations are performed. So when this is 0 and this is 1, this is for the write. So that means the microprocessor will performing the write operations on the memory, and this is for read. So here the memory write operations are performed. Next is when this bit is high and this is 0, that means on the memory location the read operations will be performed. So memory read. Next one is when IOM is high, that means input output operations are performed, and when this S0 is high, that means write operations are performed. That means when these bits are set, that means the write operation will be performed on the input output device. Next is when this is high, that means the read operation will be performed on the input output memory, because here S1 is high and S1 means read operations. Next one is 0, 1, 1. So when the value of S1 and S0 are 1, 1, that means at the current time only the microprocessor is fetching the data or fetching the instruction, and for fetching the instruction there is no need of the input output and memory addresses. Next one is when all the values are high, that means there is a interrupt acknowledgement after receiving the interrupt by the microprocessor. That means when the microprocessor is receiving the interrupt, then all these bits goes to high, means now the microprocessor will send the interrupt acknowledgement to the external peripheral devices. Next is floating 0, 0. So here floating we are writing because floating means nothing. So if there is no value in this case and this value will not affect the value of S1 and S0 for these operations, then we can write the floating. So floating is the high impedance state. That means these values will do nothing. So when these S1 and S0 are 0, 0, that means this microprocessor is on the halt. when these two values are 0 0, that means the microprocessor will goes to the halt. Next one is when the input output and memory is floating and these values are unused, means we are not microprocessor is not using the values of S1 and S0. That time the DMA will generate the signal to the microprocessor to use the system bus. So the signal is the hold, and hold signal represents when the DMA requests the microprocessor for the system bus in order to perform the data operations between input, output and the memory devices. Last one is when the same status is there, floating, unused and unused. At this time microprocessor will reset it, and all the connected devices to the microprocessor are also resetted by the microprocessor. That means the program counter values having contain 000H, and also all the registers of the microprocessor becomes 0 0. So this is the memory mapped input output and the input output.